project really began with taking flat pieces and assembling them into spheres. This was the basis of how the spheres would be made, and this work was being done on my own when I was asked to take on this project and propose an idea for this facade. So from taking the spheres that I'd been experimenting with and combining them with the golden mean of proportions, the idea started to take flight. And using the computer for the layout was kind of the only way to fathom the proportions that would need to be achieved for this project, since the space was difficult to actually get to, and we really needed a clear understanding and presentation of what these things would look like. So computer modeling was really the only way to do it. And in using the computer modeling, we are also thinking about how we would build them three-dimensionally and then flatten them, because the metal would have to be cut flat and then formed into the shape of the sphere, and then the pieces have to be welded together. So a method in how this is achieved had to be created, not only with the conceptual art, but also with the technical fabrication. The lighting aspect of the sculpture was pretty clear to me early on. The physics of taking a central lighting source and placing it in the center of the sphere, directed towards the wall, to create an omniscient shadow play. For the 5-foot and 8-foot dome, we had to create jigs, and the jigs were really important in putting together the domes, because they basically determine how symmetrical and spherical the end shape would be. There were a couple different ways we preliminarily built the jig, and for the 8-foot jig, at the end of the day, that was a much more in-depth jig that had to be made. So it was incredibly substantial, and there was a lot of forethought that went into building that one. If it hadn't been made, I don't think the 8-foot would be so on point as it is. One of the hardest parts about this project was the fact that there really wasn't a rule book for how to do this. We were developing the method to build this piece of art as we went, and there's a lot of unknowns in doing that. So it had to be perfect the first time, and that's just a hard thing to do. There were definitely some mistakes along the way, but at the end of the day, what really mattered was making good on those mistakes and making the pieces work. Something that we ended up having to do with the 8-foot was build this retaining ring to keep the sculpture safe and on point. And it was also designed to turn this way so that when we would actually install the piece of work, we'd be able to turn it and then mount and bolt the piece onto the wall and use this thing as a guide. So what you're seeing here is the sculpture being delivered to the powder coater, and after product is powder coated, pretty much all you got to do is put it in. So there's a lot of relief at this point in this process. There was a lot of learning that had to happen to get it to that point. Before we could install, the lights had to be created and UL listed, and that was a process in itself. The installation was about 20 hours in total, and it took place over 2 days, though we had equipment on site for 3, so there was a little bit of a buffer zone. The first thing that had to happen was the rings that these spheres are going to be mounted to had to be bolted to the side of the building. Once that was in, we had staged the material, the spheres, and the art in a warehouse close by the site, and we had to, get it in place. So it was kind of like this little parade in downtown Tacoma with all these parts kind of coming down the street. So this is day 2 of the install, and things felt pretty good because the rings were in place and the electrical was in place. So it's kind of a process as these spheres go in, because of the lighting element. They have to be wired before the spheres can be actually bolted to the rings that are holding the weight of the sculptures. This installation happened about a year after the initial drawings were created. And another thing that was created in this time was my daughter, and that was just such an honor to have her and my family on the site that day. There's always an incredible sense of relief when things go according to plan, and there's a million things that happen in installation, and a lot of things go wrong, but if you can get it to the point where everybody's safe and the work works, that is just that's just the best thing. Something that I didn't expect to work so well was the intermingling of the shadow play. It had been planned out, but I didn't get to test it to scale on site until the piece was really in. So this was just another real accomplishment of this process, and this project was getting that there.